Coming to you from the Deep South, this is the Blue Collar Leadership Podcast. High-impact leadership is not reserved for leaders, and it has nothing to do with your position, title, or rank. However, it does have everything to do with your character. It's time to climb to the next level and beyond, personally and professionally. Now, let's start making it happen with your host, Mack Story.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Blue Collar Leadership Podcast. Thanks for listening today. Today, we continue my 30-part series on my book, Blue Collar Leadership and Culture, the 5 components for building high-performance teams. Today, we're on part 21. Remember last episode, we started talking about the 4th component of the transformation equation, and that component is competency. So today, I want to start the transition talking about competency relative to character. And then in the future episodes of this component, competency, I'm going to shift back to competency actually being character relative to cultural transformation and leadership development. So it gets kind of confusing because of the terminology. But today I'm going to talk about competency relative to, what it takes to actually do the job, not what it takes to become a leader or what it takes to transform the culture relative to character. I want to talk about the difference between character and competency. So the title of this chapter 21, is 2 areas of focus. The subtitle is character and competency. So as we get into this chapter, I want to open it with a quote from Liz Wiseman. And she says, "The ability to mobilize the skills and competencies of the people around us has a bigger impact on our performance than does the amount of experience we have." Now think about that as a leader. Not a manager of people, but a leader of people. The ability to mobilize the skills and competencies of the people around us. What that means is you're able to motivate and inspire people and leverage their skills and their competencies, their talent, abilities, skills, knowledge, all that stuff related to the work that they do. Because as a leader, that's your mission. When you're just a worker, no one reports to you. Your mission is to do the stuff. When you become a leader of other people, your mission is to motivate and inspire them to do the stuff. And it's a completely different skill set as we've been talking about over the past 21 weeks on this book. You see, your character is related to your behavior, your soft skills, your values. And I know in the blue collar industries, there's a bunch of roughnecks out there. There's a bunch of crusty old, hard-nosed, blue-collar guys and gals. But they're kind of like, I heard John Maxwell say before, he uses the term velvet-covered brick. But it's kind of right the opposite. That implies that you're hard on the inside and soft on the outside. What a lot of blue-collar people are, they try to be hard on the outside, but they're actually really good, caring people on the inside. So they're kind of soft on the inside, but they've been used and abused and underappreciated, overlooked, underdeveloped by a lot of times a bunch of white-collar leaders. So they put on this hard outer shell because they don't trust a lot of people. But I'm going to tell you this, when you can build trust with the blue-collar workforce, it's hard to build trust with them unless you're the real deal. If you're the real deal, you're authentic, you have good character, you can build trust with them pretty quickly. But I'm going to tell you this, as hard as it may be to build trust with some of the blue-collar workforce, when you do, they are some of the most loyal, get-it-done people you'll ever meet. You already know that. I'm speaking to the choir here, right? I'm preaching to the choir, as a lot of people say. But you already know. So character is related to your behavior, soft skills, and values. And you see that we call them soft skills. I don't know who started that term, but there's nothing soft about developing your character. Developing your character is hard. It's hard to do that. They ought to call them hard skills instead of soft skills, because there's nothing soft about it. And if you start trying to lead a cultural transformation, you're going to find out how hard it is to get people to want to change their values and develop their character. Nothing easy about it. It's hard work. So let's talk about competency for a second. Competency, again, we're talking about related to the job, not related to leading people. But competency is related to your talent. And, this again is what people call hard skills, but it's actually, those are the things easy to learn. It's easy to learn the skills to do the job. Some of them may seem difficult, but it's nothing as hard as changing your values and learning to lead yourself well and lead other people well. But anyway, that's what they call them. Hard skills, knowledge, abilities, all your work-related experiences. That's competency. And I apologize that in this chapter, in this specifically in this chapter, that it's a little confusing because I'm using the word competency in different ways as we're talking about this component of competency. But I got this chapter to talk about what most people normally refer to as competency, the skills and abilities required to get the job done. But again, in the context of this culture book, these 5-6 chapters here, all of them except for this chapter, is focused on developing competency relative to leadership, which is actually character. So that's why it gets complicated here. So when we talk about competency and character, you've heard me talk about it before. Character, numerous research studies have revealed this. I've validated it. I don't need the research studies, but some people need them. But they basically say that 87% of our results is based on our character, and only 13% of our results based on our competency. You have to have the competency to do the job. There's no doubt about it. But the degree and the level of success that you achieve is going to be based on your character. Because your character is going to either multiply your competency or minimize your competency. So you must develop the necessary competency relative to your job because it's required. You can't do your job if you don't have the competency. You're not going to have a job unless you have the competency to do the job. But competency is not the most important of these two traits, character and competency. Character is the most important. And I'm going to say it again because this is important, right? Character is the most important because an individual's character will either maximize or minimize their competency. And ultimately, your character will launch you like a rocket or limit you like an anchor. I always tell people, because I meet a lot of people, they want to get a different job or they want a better job or they want a promotion. And I always tell them, if you truly know how to do that job that you want, relative to competency, if you know how to do it and you're not being given an opportunity to do it, you're being overlooked, passed over. There's only one reason. If you have the competency to do it, it's because of your character. What it is about your character, I have no idea. It could be 1,000 different things. And people are going to make excuses. Well, no, it's because somebody else, they know somebody. What is it about their character that causes them to be able to know that person? Good or bad, doesn't matter. It's something related to their character that's causing them to have a relationship with somebody that you don't have a relationship with. Or sometimes they'll say, oh, it's because they have a degree, but you don't need a degree to do that job. If the person hiring you to do the job says you need a degree to do the job, you need a degree to do the job. And if you know you need a degree to do the job and you don't have a degree to do the job, then there's a character issue. You won't pay the price and make the sacrifice to go get the degree to do the job that you want to do. That requires a degree. See how it gets kind of tricky? But everything is related to character. Your character is going to launch you or limit you. Relative to cultural transformation, the top leader's character is going to launch the organization or limit the organization. That simple. And all leaders understand the need for competency when it comes to a person being able to do their job effectively and efficiently. All leaders know that. People have to have the talent, skills, and abilities to do the job. And most leaders and their team members develop their character randomly, not intentionally. See, they develop competency intentionally. They got to make sure that everybody knows how to do the job, whether that's on-site training, off-site training, however it is. Everyone understands that the people doing the job have to be intentionally developed somehow to be able to do the job. But most leaders and their team members develop their character randomly, not intentionally. And randomly could actually be accidentally. A lot of times there's no intention. And again, that's why the rest of this series on the competency trait is relative to character. But this particular episode, again, I'm talking about competency also related to doing the job. And I know it's a bit confusing. But competency to do the job, and then there's competency. If you want to become a leader, there's going to be, see, if leading people is the job, this is where it gets tricky, because most places, leading people is not a requirement. So you don't need a competency of leadership. That's why it gets tricky. But as soon as a company goes through cultural transformation, like I'm teaching in this series and in this book, then anybody on the org chart and everybody not on the org chart is going to be required to lead people, which means they're going to have a competency related to leading people. And see, it's really not confusing if you're in an organization that does all of it. But when you've only been in organizations that talks about competency only related to doing the job, and now you start talking about competency related to doing the people, it gets a little tricky. But the word really is character. So in blue collar leadership and culture, the terms personal growth, development, leadership development, people development, when I use those terms throughout this book and throughout this series, I'm talking about character development. Personal growth is character development. Leadership development is character development. People development, relative to the context of this book, is character development. That is a competency when you talk about high impact leadership, character development. So developing both your own and your team's character is optional in most organizations. It's optional. Most organizations do not require it. So if anybody does it, it's just an option. They can do it. People don't mind if they do it, but they don't expect them to do it. It's not required. So when developing your team isn't required, most formal authority leaders choose not to do it. It's not required. They don't do it for themselves and they don't do it for their team because nobody expects them to do it. And they're busy doing what is expected to be done. But as soon as a top level leader chooses cultural transformation, now it's going to be required to be done. And you can understand motion causes friction. So when a top leader says, we're going to start leading people instead of managing people, there's a lot of friction because everybody's busy. Then anxiety sets in, we talked about last time. And now people realize they got a lot of stuff to learn because now it's required. And now they're busy doing stuff that's been required in the past, but now there's a bunch of new stuff required in the past. And it's dealing with people who have emotions and feelings and ideas and thoughts. And now we got to go get all involved in that. We got to get involved in people. And again, that's why it's hard. It's not soft skills, it's hard skills. But this choice, the choice not to do what isn't required, is the primary reason so many leaders struggle to find good people and are unable to attract great people. You see, the great people out there, the people, when companies say we can't find any good people, what they're talking about is these great people that are out there. They know they're out there, but they can't find them. And the reason they can't find them is they're not attracted to the organization that doesn't require leadership development, personal growth, development of people. Because the very best people out there to come work in an organization, they're growing and developing themselves. That's why they're great people. They have high character. They do a good job. They work well with others. That's what people of high character do. They do a good job and they work well with others. All others. People beside them, people who may report to them, people they may report to, support people. People of high character work well with other people. That's why they're high impact team players, high impact leaders, high impact individuals. Those people, they have zero interest in coming to work in an organization that doesn't grow and develop the people. Because if they come look through the window and they see a bunch of leaders who don't care about developing the people they already have, why would they want to come work there? They'd be going backwards. Doesn't even make sense. It's a completely different level of awareness, completely different level of character. Who we are is who we attract. Organizations who don't grow and develop people attract people who are not interested in growing and developing. That's why cultural transformation is such a hard thing to do. Because if we've never done anything like this, most often our organization is full of people who don't value this. So we got to try to grow and develop them, see if we can get them to embrace leadership development values, character traits of high impact people. We got to get some to do it, and some will do it. Some have been waiting on it. Even though they've never done it, they somehow know it would be better. So when it starts happening, they jump on board. We're going to talk about those people down to a few episodes farther into this chapter. Call those the hungry people. I'm going to teach you and talk to you about how you feed those hungry people. They're going to be the tip of the spear. But see, great people have many options, and one of them is to choose a great leader. So as you start down this path, when character development, people development starts to become a requirement, see, people are going to know if it's required. They're going to know if it's a nice to do or a have to do. If it's a nice to do, people will talk about we wish people would do it. If it's a have to do, it's going to be on a schedule. You see, there's going to be somebody like me brought into the organization to help facilitate and consult. How do you do it? And start training and developing people. Whoever that person is, they need to be living this stuff. They don't need to just be talking about it. When I got into this, I always said that's going to be my biggest competitive advantage in this industry is going to be the degree that I live what I teach. And I see a whole lot of people in this industry, in this space, all they want to do is make money. You go look them up on their social media or you get to know them, they ain't living this stuff they're teaching. They're just teaching it. You don't want that person helping you lead a cultural transformation. There's a whole lot more people than me that can do it. All I'm telling you, though, is you need people who are living it, who are applying it in their personal life, who have applied it in their professional life, so that they can be a good model for your team. If your team gets to know them, starts following them, they need to see the same person in your organization that's outside your organization, and vice versa. They need to see one person. They don't need to see somebody who comes, talks a good game, and then goes out and plays a bad game. Who you learn from matters. Who models for you matters. Because it's going to be hard enough when you got someone of high character leading and modeling for your team. Still going to be hard because there's going to be a lot of resistance. Again, that's what this book is about, helping you overcome that resistance. We talked about that earlier on. Without buy-in, there's going to be resistance. I want to share with you a quote here from Stephen M.R. Covey. So he made this remark relative to character and integrity. He says, openness is vital to integrity. It takes both humility and courage. Humility to acknowledge that there are principles out there you may not currently be aware of, and courage to follow them once you discover them. Man, that's a great quote. And that's what cultural transformation is about right there. It's about raising people's awareness relative to leadership principles of personal growth and development. And then you're going to be looking for the people who actually have the courage to follow them once they discover them or are exposed to them. And again, we're going to talk about that a couple episodes into the future. We're going to talk about feeding the hungry people, because those who actually choose to follow these principles, start adopting them, they're going to be your culture warriors. They're going to be your culture champions. You got to know who they are. You got to pour into them. And we're going to talk about that later. I'm going to leave you with a quote today from Carol Hyatt and Linda Gottlieb. This quote says, you can have great academic intelligence and still lack social intelligence. You can have great academic intelligence and still lack social intelligence. So let me translate that into my words. You can have great competency and still lack character. You can be tremendously intelligent and have poorly developed character. That's basically what they're saying. They're saying it in a little bit more proper way, different set of words. They're saying academic intelligence, social intelligence. So when you hear that term social intelligence, what it refers to is behavioral type stuff, soft skills, what we talked about earlier that really ain't that soft. They're hard to master. Character development, all those sort of things. So I hope you enjoyed today's episode. The next few episodes, let me see, it's going to be 5 more episodes. So there's going to be a total of 7 in this competency section. I already have talked to you about 2 of those. The next 5 are going to really move into how do you do it? How do you actually grow and develop people? So I hope you're ready for that. We've covered a lot of information. If you're just now discovering this podcast, I really hope you dive into it and go back and listen if you haven't listened, because each episode builds upon the previous episode. And if you hadn't bought Blue Collar Leadership and Culture, the 5 components for building high-performance teams, if you're a top leader in an organization or you're an up-and-coming leader and you want to learn what does it look like to transform a culture, you need to get this book. You need to mark it up. You need to read it. You need to reread it. You need to use it as a tool and become a high-impact leader of people. Do what's not required. What I'm talking about is not required. You can go out and get jobs and you can make plenty of money. And it's not required. But you're not going to be working in a great organization with great people who care about each other, who trust each other, who value each other. That's what this book is about. And if you're familiar with Chick-fil-A, is what I tell people, this book is how to help you become the Chick-fil-A of your industry. Not selling chicken, developing people. Chick-fil-A is in the people development business. They're not in the chicken business. People who only eat chicken there don't know what I'm talking about. But Chick-fil-A was a client of ours for 3 years. We got to learn a lot about who they are. And who they are is somebody who's doing the stuff that I'm talking to you about in this book. They've been doing it for over 50 years. That's why they have high quality. That's why they have great customer service. That's why they have clean organizations with super nice people. That's why the drive-thrus are packed all the time, because people like doing business with them. They treat their folks well. Their folks treat their customers well. And the customers treat them well. Pretty cool way to do business. Talk to you next time.
Make it happen or someone else will. It might as well be you. Are you serious about taking your career and your life to the next level and beyond? Check out Mack Story's Blue Collar Leadership series books and others, now available on audio, along with paperback and ebooks at Amazon, iTunes, and Audible. Please visit bluecollarleadership.com to learn about Mack's books, programs, special offers, certifications, and more. Thank you for listening to the Blue Collar Leadership Podcast.